Have you ever felt like life is just a battle? Like you're constantly pushing against obstacles, fighting for your place in the world? Well, we're about to dive into a really profound idea that doesn't try to get rid of that struggle, but actually transforms it into something joyful, something creative. Okay, let's get into the concept of the sacred yes. And this quote, this really gets to the heart of it all. The point isn't to find a life with zero resistance. It's to fundamentally change our relationship to that resistance. It's a total recontextualization. You're shifting from a fight to a form of art. So how on earth do we actually do that? All right, here's our roadmap. First, we're going to break down why we see the world as a war. Then we'll introduce the solution, the sacred yes. After that, we'll explore how to shift from combat to play, why just saying no isn't enough, and finally, how to actually start loving the resistance itself. So let's start at the beginning, understanding this philosophical battleground that, honestly, we all find ourselves on. This is what's known as the Fichtean struggle. So the philosopher Johann Fichte had this idea that our very sense of self, our I, only really exists because it's pushing against something that is not us. This resistance, which he called the not I or Anstoß, is basically everything else. The world, our obstacles, anything outside of our own skin. And this right here, this is our default setting. On one side, you have the I, that's you, your consciousness, just trying to be and do things. And on the other side, you have the not I, which is the world. And it so often feels like an obstacle, right? Or even an enemy. Our very existence starts with this fundamental collision. A perfect metaphor for this is the biblical figure Samson. You can think of him as that raw, unconscious will. He just experiences the world as one collision after another, and he reacts blindly with total brute force. And this isn't just some old story, it's a powerful image of that adversarial combat mode we can all get stuck in. Okay, but what if there's another way to live? This brings us to the sacred yes, that huge life-changing shift from fighting the world to actually creating with it. So, what is the sacred yes? It's a deep internal transformation. It's not about changing the world outside of you, it's about changing your perspective on it. You stop seeing every struggle as this hostile battle, and you start to see it as a kind of creative, almost joyful play. Right, so how do we actually make that jump from combat to play? It's not about what you're doing, it's all about how you relate to it. The entire shift happens inside your own head. Now check this out. It's so simple, but so powerful. In the war mindset, an obstacle, a tight deadline, a tough conversation. It's an enemy that you have to destroy. But in the play mindset, that exact same obstacle becomes a kind of toy, a building block for a new beginning. The resistance of the world actually becomes your creative material. And this leads to a state that Fichte called intellectual intuition. I know, it sounds a little academic, but just think of a tightrope walker. In a state of separation, they feel dread. They are the actor, and the rope is this dangerous, separate thing they have to conquer. But in a state of union, the actor and the action, they just merge. There's no separation left. And this quote just captures that feeling perfectly. You're no longer a person doing a task. You are the activity itself. You don't just have a will that's struggling against the world, you become the very act of creating meaning. You are both the struggle and the struggler. But hold on, this transformation isn't just about a change in feeling. It's more than that. It requires moving past simple defiance, past just screaming no at the world. And this is where Nietzsche's three metamorphoses come in. They're the perfect map for this journey. First, the spirit is a camel, just carrying burdens. Then it becomes a lion, roaring no and destroying old rules to create freedom. But that final, most powerful stage, that's the child, who says yes and creates brand new values from scratch. So here's the crucial point. The lion's no has limits. It's powerful, for sure. It can clear the way, it can give you freedom from something, but it can't build anything new. It clears the desert, but it can't build the city. It's the child's sacred yes that brings about a true new beginning, moving beyond just destruction to actually create a new reality. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most profound piece of this whole puzzle, learning to actually love your resistance and reframing the entire world not as a prison, but as your own personal stage. You know, that old Fichtean view, the world as a war thing, it can really feel like this. Like we're trapped in this cold, indifferent universe, a prison of dead matter. The struggle just feels exhausting and, frankly, meaningless.
But the sacred yes completely flips that script. The world is no longer something that just happens to you. It becomes a deed I perform. The resistance of the world, the mud, gravity, all the challenges, that becomes the very stage you need for your will to express itself. And that's really the core takeaway here. You don't win the struggle by getting rid of resistance. In fact, if you did that, you'd erase your very sense of self. No, you resolve the struggle by loving the resistance, by seeing it as the essential fuel for your own creation. And this is our modern Samson. He's not blindly colliding with the world anymore. He gets it now. He understands that the friction, the tension, the struggle, that is the very thing that allows his own creative power, his own lightning to ignite.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. What's the friction in your life right now? What if those obstacles aren't enemies you have to destroy? What if they're the very raw material you need for your next great creative act? Where is the friction in your life that's just waiting to ignite?